Hello everyone and welcome once again. So this is the last part of our video regarding vulnerable group with special reference to internally displaced person. As we covered the meaning of vulnerable group in our previous video, so in this video we are going to discuss about internally displaced person. So who comes under the category of internally displaced person, or whom we can consider as internally displaced person? The answer is, an internally displaced person is someone who is forced to flee their homes, habitual residences, but who used to remain within their country's borders. I repeat once again, an internally displaced person is someone who is forced to flee. Flee means leave. Who is forced to flee or leave their homes, habitual residences, but who used to remain within their country's national borders. They are considered as internally displaced person. Also, an internally displaced person or persons, they often referred to as refugees, although they do not fall within the legal definitions of a refugee. Even though the internally displaced person, most interestingly, they are the citizens of their own nation. I repeat once again, also an internally displaced person or persons, they are often referred to as refugees, even though they do not fall within the legal definitions of a refugee. In fact, they are the citizens of their own nation. But even though they are not the refugees, even though they are the citizens of their own nation, but their social position, their social status, their condition is very much synonymous to the refugees. Once they become homeless, their condition or their conditions become worst like a refugee. Okay. So now we will see the consequences that the internally displaced person or internally displaced persons they are facing, or what are the consequences that internally displaced person or persons they are facing or they may face. As they become homeless, they have to face some serious issues, some serious problems, serious challenges, like they remain at the high risk of physical attack. They remain at the high risk of physical attack. The internally displaced person or persons, they remain at the high risk of physical attack. As they are homeless, as they are weak, so they may get physically attacked by anyone at any portion of time. In the same way, we can say they do have the fear of sexual assault. They do have the fear of sexual assault. They may get sexually assaulted at any portion of time by anyone, especially the women, especially the daughters of the homeless families. Next consequence is one of the most important consequences that happens with the internally displaced person. So far as the mortality rate of the internally displaced person are concerned, if we compare the mortality rate of the internally displaced person with the general population, we will find the mortality rate of the internally displaced person is very high than the general population. And the answer is very simple. As they are homeless, until they are getting a next house, they have to move here and there in search of a shelter. so that they can cover up themselves from natural calamities like cyclone, like flood, like thunderstorm and all. So until they used to manage a house for themselves, once they become homeless, they have to move here and there in search of a shelter to cover up themselves. In this way, most of the time they have to face the natural calamities directly. Natural calamities like thunderstorm, natural calamities like cyclone, as well as flood. So they have to face all the natural calamities directly, which makes their life or lives more vulnerable. So this is how the mortality rate or mortality rates of the internally displaced person is very high than the general population. So these are the consequences that happens or that may happens with the internally displaced person. So now we are going to discuss about the similarities and the differences that do exist between internally displaced persons and refugees. First, we will discuss about the similarities that do exist between internally displaced persons and refugees. Always remember, whenever the question of similarities between internally displaced persons and refugees will come, always think in terms of the problems, the challenges that are being faced by the internally displaced persons. Why? Because most of all the problems, challenges that are being faced by the internally displaced persons, the maximum number of exact problems are also being faced by the refugees, such as fear of physical attack, fear of sexual assault, high mortality rate, lack of adequate health as well as educational facilities. Okay. So ultimately we can say that most of all the problems, challenges that are being faced by the internally displaced persons, almost all or maximum number of exact problems are being also faced by the refugees, such as, again I am repeating, such as the fear of physical attack, sexual assault, high mortality rate, lack of adequate health as well as educational facilities. Okay. So these are the similarities that exist between internally displaced persons and refugees. Now we are going to discuss about the differences that exist between internally displaced persons and refugees. First of all, we must need to know as well as we must need to understand that who is an internally displaced person and who is a refugee or refugee. An internally displaced person is someone who is forced or bound to flee or leave their homes as well as habitual residences. But even after leaving their homes, they used to remain within the national borders of their nation. But so far as a refugee is concerned, a refugee is someone who used to move from their own nation to a different nation in search of food, shelter, or you can say a refugee is someone who used to cross national as well as international borders out of fear that exists in their own nation. or out of persecution they used to move from their own nation to a different nation in search of food, shelter or anything. Next difference is that, and most interestingly, you should always remember that an internally displaced person or internally displaced persons, they are the citizens of their own nation. They neither used to cross their national boundaries nor they willing to cross their national boundaries. They are the citizens of their own nation. But so far as refugees are concerned, they used to cross their national borders, boundaries, as well as they also used to cross international borders. Okay. Next, we can say an internally displaced person, he or she, even if they are internally displaced, but they are the citizens of their own nation, in this way they do have all the rights as a citizen have, as provided by the constitution. They do have all the rights as a citizen as provided by the constitution, because they are the citizens of the nation, means they are the citizens of their nation, and they can enjoy all the rights as provided by the constitution, because they are the citizens. But so far as the question of refugees are concerned, as they are not the citizens, so they cannot enjoy all the rights as provided by the constitution for the citizens. Even they do not have all the rights as the internally displaced persons they do have. Okay. Next and most interesting one is that for the protection of the rights of the refugees, there are maximum number of international laws are there. Even though for the protection of the rights of the internally displaced persons, also there are some or certain international laws are there, but the difference is for the protection of the rights of the refugees, there are some special international laws are there. But so far as the question of internally displaced persons and their rights, so for the protection of the rights of the internally displaced persons, there are no such special international laws are there. So these are the differences between internally displaced persons and refugees. Okay, so these are the basic things regarding internally displaced persons or person that comes under the category of vulnerable group. So whatever we have discussed till now, I do hope that you all will understand it. Okay, so in our next video I will come with a new topic. Till then, stay safe, stay at your homes and do proper take care of yourselves. Okay, we will meet very soon. Till then, take care. Once again, good night.